We have all this energy in the Philippine economy. We have the demographics. We have the demographic condition in the Philippines better than most of Asia. We are one of the youngest populations in Asia. Di mo pwede ikulong yan. What do I see about the Philippine economy? Nowhere to go but up.
Hi everyone, we are back with one of your favorites.
Yes.
Historian, business follower, and a very staunch advocate of making the Philippines a better place, not just for people, but also as an economy, as a place that's very, very good for business. We have Philippine star columnist Wilson Flores back in the show. Wilson, how are you?
I'm fine. Despite the pandemic, we are not only surviving, we are trying to adjust. And also, I'm always optimistic. Basically, I'm an optimist. Based on reality, and hindi optimism na blind optimism, na I'm also hoping and preparing for the coming economic boom. Kasi right now, we are all talking about how to survive. It's the pandemic, may Delta, new surge, and everything. Not only here, but globally. For people who are upset, we should not think that it's the Philippines only. Pero we are doing not too bad compared to other countries and considering our resources. We are third world country. We don't have the fancy facilities of US and Israel. We don't have the hospitals that they have. We don't have the medical budget that they have. We don't have, sa US right now, in September, almost half of the population vaccinated. In Israel, 80 to 90% vaccinated. We are not yet 20%, I think, nationwide. But good news, Metro Manila is maybe half the population eligible already vaccinated. So we are not doing badly, Marvin. Isa pang I want to tell you why I say that. Kasi in terms of death rates, ito, not the economic side, this is the human life side, that people don't see. Siyempre, they're angry, galit sila, nakakulong sa bahay, 1 year, 2 years. I'll tell you, the richest country in the world up to now, nominally speaking, or at least GDP, still the richest country in the world, still. Kahit na they're in decline, talagang mismanaged, whatever, they're declining in competitiveness and whatever, still number 1 in the world, still the richest pa rin is USA, di ba? USA, they have as of today 640,000 deaths. 640,000 deaths out of 300 million people. We in the Philippines, we are a developing third world country with very few modern facilities for hospitals and everything. We don't manufacture vaccines like the US. We in the Philippines, as far as I know, the official records of deaths we have as of September is 35,000 deaths. That's so big difference with the US. We are doing siyempre, we don't want any death, diba? Every single death is a tragedy. By US standards, if they have 640,000 deaths and we are 1/3 their population, we should have 200,000 deaths. Can you imagine? Shocking yan. So, in fairness to the Philippines, to the whole country, it's not the government only, our very good, outstanding doctors, our heroic world-class nurses, and all these things, we have prevented massive deaths in the country. I own Kamuning Bakery Cafe in Quezon City, 82 years old. A few weeks ago, the Israeli diplomat of the embassy, si Mr. Nir Balsam, came to talk sa Pandesal Forum, and I was telling him, Sir, what can Israel teach us about anti-pandemic efforts? Kasi they're the first country in the world, 80% vaccinated na. Magaling sila, and they are very rich, industrialized country. Do you know what he told me? Wilson, actually, the Philippines is not doing too bad. Sabi niya. And then I checked, totoo. We are doing better than them. Would you believe? We are doing better than them. Why? I'll tell you why. He told me, na-shock ako eh. Wilson, don't forget, we have only 9 million people. They have only 9 million people. We have 100 million people. We have 10 times the population of Israel, but we don't have 10 times their infection rates. Do you know today, because of this Delta, they had 9 to 10,000 infections a day, new infections. At that rate, we should have 100,000 every day. Luckily, we don't. Kasi in fairness to the government and the doctors and everybody else helping together, we are very strict sa lockdown, di ba? The only negative lang about it is our economy has been locked down also. Yun lang ang masama. So, ako personally, when you asked me earlier sa message and today, what do I see about the Philippine economy? Nowhere to go but up. Kasi we are the longest lockdown in the world. But now, I think after almost 2 years, 1 year, and almost 2 years already, I think the government is now balancing na towards opening economy without endangering lives. I believe nowhere to go economy but up. These months, we are having a lot of vaccines coming. Whatever our inefficiencies, whatever our supply problems, we are now having a lot of vaccines. In our bakery Kamuning Bakery Cafe, a few months ago, I was worried how to get people to line up and get access to vaccines. Alam mo ngayon, Marvin, good news. Quezon City people would call me up, "Sir, do you have people pa na ayaw magpa-vaccine? Can you help them line up this Sunday?" It's easy na to get vaccines in Metro Manila. So, if we do that continuously, we might become like, anong country? Denmark. The good news is Denmark, 73% of the population vaccinated. They took out all restrictions na. It's already normal na in their country. So we are on the way to that na. Tapos isa pang good news, Secretary Joy Concepcion, the Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship, is proposing a so-called bakuna bubble. I don't know the details, pero the principle behind it is anybody vaccinated would have more mobility. Ibig sabihin, all the employees, all the consumers, all the wealthy people, the friends mo, Marvin, all of them, pag naka-vaccinated na, you can go to the malls, you can transact, you can, restaurants could partially open na, everything. We could have more mobility. So that's another good news. So isa pang good news natin, the election is coming, Marvin. People have not noticed this, but every national election of this country, especially may presidential, vice presidential pa, I talked to the head of Nielsen Philippines, si Patrick Chua, the head of Philippines Nielsen, Nielsen Philippines, Nielsen Myanmar, Nielsen Vietnam, siya country head. He told me every national election, it adds, election spending adds 1 to 2% up to 2% GDP growth. It will add to our GDP growth. Yung gastos talaga. This will be a very happy, better than last Christmas and New Year. US President Biden suddenly called up China President for 90 minutes conversation. Before, it was the US always quarreling with China, always lecturing China, lecturing every time. Tapos nagalit ang China siguro, nainis. Parang pissed off already ang China. So every time they are meeting, yung mga low-level diplomats meeting with the Americans, they would always counter-lecture back na, "Uy, don't lecture us." So parang there's a standstill among the world's 2 biggest economies. That's bad for the Philippines because all countries in the world need global growth, global stability. If the world's 2 biggest economies are quarreling like kindergarten kids, parang it's bad for the world economy. So suddenly, I think maybe because of the loss of Afghanistan or whatever, the economy of America needs also to trade with China, needs to borrow more money from China and whatever. So now, suddenly Biden calls up China president and talks for 90 minutes. I think we have to prepare for good news. I think in the US-China relationship, nowhere to go but up also. The worst case scenario there is it will just maintain as it is now, na parang a little bit cold towards each other. So we have to be hopeful for the world. And in fairness to the government, our fiscal and monetary policies are excellent. They are excellent. They have not been irresponsible. In fact, personally, I have complaints that the government of Duterte is kuripot. Kuripot. Sunny Domingos is very stingy. It's not a negative thing. a little bit stingy compared to Thailand, compared to Germany. Some other countries naman are spending too much because they saw this worldwide slowdown of the economy. So they're spending too much, giving away money too much and everything. That's good and bad also. Good because you will stimulate the economy, but in the long run, you will have to pay for that. Our government, in fairness to the government, they are too disciplined. One more thing, pala, very happy news for the Philippines is the build, Marvin. I was able to talk to Secretary Mark Villar, and in fairness to this government, they are consistently continuing to build infrastructure. You know, si Congressman Joey Salceda, also a customer of Kamuning Bakery and Pandesal Forum, he said in October, the good news, one of the poorest areas in the whole Philippines since time immemorial, since the time of Quezon and Magellan pa, is the Bicol region, di ba? Those Bicol region provinces have always been attacked by typhoons non-stop, and they have been always poor areas, di ba? The Bicol region and the Samar Mindanao area. Finally, they will have an international airport. It's called Bicol International Airport. It will be operational now in October. And the number of capacity is 2 million something a year. That's alam mo, the opening of that airport is 2.2 million passengers capacity a year. That's almost double the number of tourists that went to Albay a year before the pandemic. Can you imagine the tremendous impact on trade and tourism on those poor, neglected Bicol provinces? So ako, personally, I'm very confident that we are waiting for stability lang in the world economy, and we are waiting lang to win over the pandemic. Parang the Philippine economy is like a horse. Alam mo yan? Excited to run, pero being reined in lang, tinatali lang, pinipigilan lang, sa English, being not yet unleashed. We have all this energy in the Philippine economy. We have the demographics. We have the demographic condition in the Philippines better than most of Asia. We are one of the youngest populations in Asia. Di mo pwede ikulong yan. All the energy, all the ambition, you will have many more people, Marvin, nagging you for advice on how to invest in stocks, how to save money. Kasi these are young people eager to buy their first homes, eager to invest in their first stock, even to open their bank accounts. There are many of them. We are a productive society pa. And isa pa, some people are saying political uncertainty is the question mark that will derail the economy of any country, Marvin. Politics is always something that will mess up an economy. Luckily for the Philippines, I think, it's not true that we have uncertainty. Kasi what we have is a democracy that's noisy. Your noisy democracy is better than revolution. This noisy election and noisy media attacks against each other, we are quarreling, puro salita lang yan. All these noisy, talkative politicians and their whatever propaganda. But in the end, we are self-renewing our political stability. I'll tell you, Marvin, if you look at history, I'm a history buff. All throughout East Asia, all throughout Southeast Asia, all the best economic miracles happen under long-term political rule. Meiji restoration of Japan. From the 19th century up to the early 20th century yun. How long yan? 10, 20, 30 years under strong rule. Tapos South Korea under Park Chung-hee, 20, 30 years. Lee Kuan Yew, 20, 30 years. And then the Sun now pa, part 2. The Sun, part 2. So that's how many years? 30, 40 years. Mahathir, 20, 30 years in power. The best economic growth in the history of Malaysia. Thailand, a series of and then of course China, 1949 up to now, continuously under the same one-party rule, and the biggest economic miracle in the history of mankind. 800 million people lifted from poverty. I'm not saying we don't have democracy. We have a democracy but validated by elections naman yan eh. So if just in case the president wins as vice president, the daughter wins as president, we are okay. If the president loses or the daughter loses or doesn't run, we are going to be okay also. Kasi all our candidates are legit and our economic policies are irreversible. Our socio-economic reforms in the Philippines are irreversible. So there's nowhere to go for the Philippine economy but up. And isa pa, Marvin,
Go.
I keep going to history. I love history. One of the worst pandemics in human history, one of the worst, was the 1918 improperly and unfairly named Spanish flu. This lasted 1918 to 1919 only. Mga 2 years lang yata eh. Do you know what happened after that Spanish flu afflicted 500 million people in the world? 1/3 of all the people on earth nagkaroon ng pandemic, sakit. Tapos there were no vaccines like we have now. No vaccines, no internet, no mass lang sila in hospitalization. 20 to 50 million people died 1918. Do you know what happened after the Spanish influenza when all the people were so depressed, the businesses shut down, mga ganyan din like what's happening now. Do you know what happened after the Spanish flu? It was called the Roaring Twenties. Talagang the economy was booming. It was called the Roaring Twenties. 1920s was called also the Just Age by the Americans. And do you know what the French called it in their language? The Crazy Years. The economic growth was so crazy, they called it the Crazy Years, the French. So we have to ready ourselves. Alam mo, Marvin, we have to take care of our health. We have to survive this pandemic. We should not die of despair. We should not die of ill health. We should survive. We should not die of economic whatever. We should survive this because the best times are coming. Philippines will become the Italy, Spain of Asia. Do you know why? We have the same weather as Italy and Spain and Portugal na favorite of the Germans, di ba? The Germans are the wealthy countries, yung industrial, full of factory, serious, they don't like to relax. And the mga Italians and Spanish, siesta, and then sunny weather, di ba? And beaches. We are the Spain and Italy to China and to North Korea and South Korea and Japan. So, very good question. When will tourism come back? I think it will come back sooner than most people expect.